Hi everyone. I just wanted to have a little talk about, let you know about Delphi Coral Goes Bassooning. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the background to this theatre piece that I'm writing. I'm in a band called the Lovies, and the Lovies has been going for about 5 years, and it started off as a ukulele band, and then about a year or so into it, I rediscovered my bassoon, which was at my parents' place. And so I thought, oh, well, maybe the bassoon might sound good. So I took it out and started practicing again. And it's now a kind of integral part of the Lovies and what we're doing. And it had been 35 years since I played that instrument. So it was an interesting experience to put together an instrument, because it's, you put it together after such a long time of not playing it. And actually I had a very ambivalent relationship with that instrument, because in fact my mother forced me to play it, and I never wanted to play it. So what happened was that one day she saw an ad in the paper when I was about 14 for a railway auction, and at the railway auction there happened to be a bassoon, and that bassoon really caught her imagination. So off my mother went in her intrepid way to a railway auction, and she bought the bassoon. Nobody else knew what it was, so she bought it for, she can't remember how much it was, but it was not very much, maybe say $50. She brought it home, she gave it to me, and she said, here's the instrument you're going to play. We found a teacher at the Conservatorium of Sydney, and I somehow managed to get a scholarship, and I learnt the instrument for a number of years, hating it. I'd have to drag it off to school, practice at school. It was an instrument that no one understood, no one knew what it wasn't. Certainly wasn't the path to popularity, and it's also a really, really difficult instrument to play. It's got lots and lots of complicated fingerings, and it took me a long time to get around it, and I never wanted to practice it really, but for some reason I was able to play it. So I played it in the orchestras. It got me into a fancy school because they needed a bassoon, and then I kept going through the grade system, and finally I got to grade 7, which is quite high in that grade system, and I failed the exam, and it was just a big shock to everybody, because I was meant to be the next bassoon player of Sydney, and I was so appalled and so embarrassed, and also so, I suppose I had no real investment in it apart from the fact that it was something my mother wanted me to do, that I told my mother I'd failed the exam. I went and hid in a cupboard, and then I never played it again, and I never spoke about it again with my mother. So it was quite a trauma in my life, and 35 years later, when I was playing this big character in the Lovies called Delphi Coral, suddenly it was not me playing the instrument anymore, it was somebody else. It was like a bigger version of myself, I suppose, a more dramatic version of myself, and so somehow it felt okay. Somehow suddenly it felt kind of unusual and spunky and audacious and kind of a little bit weird, and it made sense in the context of this band, the Lovies. Playing it in the Lovies has got me a lot of attention, and it's helped me to reflect on why I was playing the instrument in the first place, and that's why. And so I started to think about writing a one-woman show around this very thing of being forced to play an instrument that I didn't really like, and that instrument has a really long and interesting story in itself, but also in my story there is a very important part of it, the relationship between me and my mother, and the relationship between my mother and her mother as musicians, and as people in a way being forced to play music, even though music is at the absolute centre of my life and I could not imagine living without it. I have a kind of a different approach to music and a different history around music than a lot of people, and it's a little bit messed up. So, there's nothing like something a little bit messed up to make good drama, and that's what I'm doing. So 2 years ago I started to write it, and I wrote it as a tiny little short, maybe 10-minute play, and it's just gradually growing and developing, and it's a very slow process, because actually, as it turns out, it's a very deep process. It's a deep process of research, and it's a deep process of going within, and it's also a deep process of communicating with my mother about something that actually caused me quite a lot of pain at the time. And I'm lucky that my mother's still alive, and that we have the opportunity to actually work through it. I mean, yeah, that's a really incredible thing to have, because a lot of people, because my mother could have passed away, and it would be a different story if my mother had gone, but my mother's here. So now I'm working with a writer, and we're developing it even further and going even deeper, and she's pushing me even further than I would go, and in fact further than I'm, to be honest, quite comfortable to go. And we are at the point now where we are workshopping and developing and taking it even further. So in my fear that I would never ever finish it, because it is so confronting, and because it's a lot of work to do a one-woman show, and nobody cares, whether it lives or dies at this point, of course, except for me. So it can be really hard to find the courage and find the commitment to something when, it may or may not have any bearing on, the state of the world. Like any art, I suppose, there's got to be something that keeps you going and keeps you wanting to uncover these stories that can easily just be left, and like so many other stories, they're just left and they just die with the person. So I really want to tell this story, and the more personal it becomes, the more I want to tell the story. The more universal the story becomes, the more I feel that it has something for everybody, really, on some level, because it's not just about the bassoon, it's not just about being a musician, it's about relationships. And so now I've signed up to this 100-day challenge, and the reason I signed up to that was because I was afraid that I would never ever get it. I would do everything else before I would spend any time working on this, because I am busy setting up my own other businesses, and with the Lovies and Delphi and Dynasty 8, my chamber choir, there's always something else to do. But I know that doing this on my own and making it happen is something that I really want to do. So I signed up to the 100-day challenge, and I'm on day 6 today. And what I've decided to do is to film every day, or maybe every couple of days, where I'm at. Today I had a very productive day, because I actually went through all my bassoon music and I collated the bassoon songs that I want to do. So that felt like quite significant. And I'm also writing some songs as well. So as I'm going through this 100-day challenge, I'll be posting some of the songs, posting some of the ideas, seeing if there's anyone out there who's interested, who might like to give some feedback. And I'm hoping by the 9th of September, the 9th of December 2019, that I'll have something that I can actually present as a workshop to my close friends and people who are really my close supporters, to see whether, it's going to become anything. So this is the introduction to Delphi Goes Bassooning, and I hope you'll join me on this journey, because oh God, I don't know, who knows what's going to happen, but it'll be interesting, and it's great for me to know that there are people there who've got my back and who are saying, go on, keep going, let's see what this story is going to be, let's see how it unfolds. So yeah, see you soon.